I was going to say, it must be for something broad.
Secondary.
Oh, okay. And you could probably get it for a summer.
Senate will please come to order. Today's devotional exercises will be conducted by Reverend Rick Swanson of the St. John's in the Mountains Episcopal Church of Stowe. Welcome again.
Good morning. I invite those of you who are able to please stand. Gathered, this body of servants to the people of Vermont attend to the work given to them for the good of the people they lead. Endow them with wisdom to listen before they speak, study before they craft words, care before they vote. May that which divides them be the glue that binds them, and the work they do, honoring the high calling they have been given by the people of Vermont with a hope for a better future. We ask this, calling on the holy and the good woven through their lives. Amen.
Amen.
Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we have two bills for referral under Rule 31. One being S-100, affecting the expenditures of the state, will be they're appearing for notice on calendar, by the way, will be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. And we have S-133, also affecting the expenditures of the state, will be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. We have a resolution to be introduced first reading, JRH 3. Please listen to the first reading of the resolution by title.
JRH 3, Joint Resolution authorizing the Green Mountain Boys State Educational Program to use the State House facilities on June 29, 2023.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution will be placed on the notice calendar. We have a Senate bill for introduction, a couple of Senate bills for introduction. The first being S-134, introduced by Senator Collimore and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill by title.
S-134, an act relating to requiring legislative approval prior to closing or reducing the size or scope of any Vermont State College library.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill is referred to the Committee on Education. We have S-135. It is a committee bill introduced by the Committee on Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs. Please listen to the first reading of the bill by title.
S-135, an act relating to the establishment of VT Saves.
Being a committee bill, it has now been read a first time and will be placed on the calendar for notice. We now have S-136, introduced by Senator Renner and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill by title.
S-136, an act relating to addressing climate change.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill is referred to the Committee on Natural Resources and Energy. We do have a House bill for reference, H-461. It was introduced by the House Committee on Education. Please listen to the first reading of the bill by title.
H-461, an act relating to making miscellaneous changes in education laws.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill is referred to the Committee on Education. That brings us to the orders of the day. We have up first for consideration S6. S6 was read the first time and it was referred to the Committee on Judiciary, which considered the same, and that recommends that when amended, the bill ought to pass. The bill is then referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which also considered the same and recommends that when the bill is amended, it ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S6, an act relating to custodial interrogation of juveniles.
Now you've heard the second reading of the bill, and for the report of the Committee on Judiciary, I'd like to recognize the Senator from Windham County, Senator Hashim.
Mr. President, it is slightly disappointing that I'm unable to present my first bill in person. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak on legislation that relates to policy and trust in law enforcement. Before I get to the substance of this bill, I do just want to share a very brief story that I think captures my feelings towards this issue. About 12 years ago, when I was a new trooper, I was on my way back from an incident with my sergeant in which there was a lot of gray area. The facts were unclear and the choices we had to make were very difficult for everyone involved. On our way back, I was asking him how he's managed the last 15 or so years of his career navigating morally ambiguous situations. And he described to me the straight face test when it comes to making these challenging decisions. In other words, at the end of your shift, you have to be able to say with a straight face that you tried your hardest, you kept people safe, and most importantly, you were honest in your actions and your words. And this is a concept that has stuck with me since the conversation. And it's why I'm a strong supporter of S6, which would prohibit law enforcement from using deception on juveniles with custodial interrogation. The substantive change to our statutes begin with Section 1, which has Title 13 VSA 5585, definition of deception as follows. Deception includes the knowing communication of false facts about evidence, the knowing misrepresentation of the accuracy of the facts, the knowing misrepresentation of the law, or the knowing communication of unauthorized statements regarding leniency. Section 1 also provides further definition for law enforcement officers to include school resource officers or other individuals acting on behalf of law enforcement. Section 2 changes Title 13 VSA 5586 to move the rules related to electronic recording of custodial interrogations that was previously located in Section 5585. The next change is in Section 3, which updates Title 13 VSA 5587, definition of juvenile in custody for the purposes of interrogation. This section states that any person over the age of 22 who is in custody for a criminal investigation or delinquent act cannot be subject to threats, physical harm, or deception. This section also establishes the evidence standard of clear and convincing evidence as a standard for which a prosecutor must overcome to admit evidence if there's a presumption that it is inadmissible. The next substantive change in Section 4, which tasks the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council with developing a model interrogation policy for all people in Vermont by January 1st, 2024. The council will also have to consult stakeholders such as the Attorney General's Office, the Agency of Human Services, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the Vermont Human Rights Commission, and the Innocence Project. If agencies do not comply with the model policy by April 1st, 2024, they will be ineligible for grants or financial assistance. Section 5 relates to grant eligibility and is connected to Section 4. If agencies are not in compliance with the model interrogation policy, they may not be eligible for grants or financial assistance from the state. Section 6 provides further definitions and guidance related to the model interrogation policy. Specifically, it creates guidelines for the council to revisit the model policy and update it if necessary. It also requires the council to collaborate with the previously mentioned stakeholders in the process of developing its policy, as well as providing opportunity for law enforcement agencies to work with the council to develop their own policy in order to ensure it follows the guidelines so that they won't risk losing access to financial assistance or grants. I will pass over Section 7, but it's my understanding that an amendment presented by a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Section 8 is the effective date section, and we heard from the following witnesses: a member of the Vermont Police Association, the Deputy Director of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council, the Executive Director and a member of the Department of State Attorneys and Sheriffs, a policy advocate for the Innocence Project, the Assistant General Counsel of the Department of Public Safety, a Sergeant of the Vermont State Police Legislative Council, the Attorney General's Office, a policy advocate of the ACLU of Vermont, an exoneree with experience, the Director of the Civil Rights Unit in the Office of the Attorney General, and the Chief Superior Judge. And Mr. President, I'll conclude by saying that one of the most important foundations, in my opinion, of a functioning society and government is the ability for the people to trust its institutions. Whether it's the legislature, law enforcement, or schools, or any other entity, trust and honesty are core values that must be at the forefront of people's interactions with those institutions. Given the fact that members of our local and state police are given the highest responsibility enforcing the laws that we create, we should also ensure that our citizens are able to trust that law enforcement is being honest with them in their interactions. The vote on this bill is 5-0-0, and I ask for this body's support. Thank you.
Now you've heard the report from the Committee on Judiciary, and now for the report from the Committee on Appropriations, Senator from Bennington County, Senator Sears.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Appropriations Committee looked at this bill and looked at the $150,000 appropriation and decided to take the $150,000 out of the bill, deleting Section 7, And the reason for that was not that we didn't think it was a good idea. We do, but there may be other funding available to the academy at this point. And so it'll be part of our discussions in the FY24 budget. And we've added $150,000 to the list of items that need to be dealt with. But the idea that if we continue to give responsibilities to the training council to come up with new policies and procedures and standardized policies for specific, we need to be able to pay for that. So your appropriations committee, while agreeing with the need for the funding, chose to leave it for that $1.4 million. The vote in the appropriations committee was 7-0-0.
Now, you've heard the report of the Committee on Appropriations. The question is, shall the report of the Committee on Judiciary be amended as offered by the Committee on Appropriations? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the report on Judiciary as offered by the Committee on Appropriations. The question now is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the Committee on Judiciary as amended? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I please interrogate the reporter of the bill?
The reporter of the bill, the junior member from the Judiciary Committee, who's one of the reporters on this bill, is interrogated.
May I please ask how the age of 22 was arrived at for the threshold level for interrogation?
Yes, there was a lot of deliberation going in both directions as to what the age should be. The primary, the main idea is that the youthful offender program in our state has the maximum age is 22, and the primary purpose is to have it correspond and have some consistency with that program as well.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Question now is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the Committee on Judiciary as amended? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the bill as offered by the Committee on Judiciary as amended. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S6. That now brings us to the next order of business, which is S37. S37, third reading was ordered yesterday. The question now is, are there any amendments before third reading? Senator from Chittenden Southeast.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not have an amendment, but I do have a comment around the bill. Apparently, there was some misinterpretation of some of the information that I provided yesterday, and I want to offer clarity about what the bill does and does not do. S37 does not change the type of gender-affirming healthcare services provided in this state, nor does it change any law, professional regulation, or medical practice guidelines or requirements that govern how gender-affirming healthcare services are provided in this state. This includes making no changes to laws, regulations, or practice requirements governing informed consent or the involvement of parents in the decision-making process for a minor receiving gender-affirming healthcare services. The changes S37 makes related to gender-affirming healthcare services are to require in statute that insurance and Medicaid cover gender-affirming healthcare services, and these are services already covered by insurance and Medicaid but are not required to be covered by law. And two, to add statutory protections for healthcare providers providing gender-affirming healthcare services so that the providers are not subject to increased medical practice premiums or professional discipline solely based on their providing gender-affirming healthcare services and are legal in this state and that are performed competently and in compliance with professional standards of practice. Mr. President, if anyone receives confusing emails about what this bill does and does not do, that is the statement that one should reply with. Thank you, Mr. President.
And I apologize to the body. I would normally order third reading, and then we would have comment and debate because there's not a question on the floor at the moment. We will not require you to repeat your comments, however. If there are no amendments before third reading, if we could hear the third reading of the bill.
S37, an act relating to access to legally protected healthcare activity and regulation of healthcare providers.
Now the question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed S37. We now have up for consideration S48. Third reading was ordered. Are there any amendments before third reading? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill by title.
S48, an act relating to regulation of the sale of catalytic converters.
The question now is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed S48. We now have up for consideration S94. Third reading was ordered. Are there any amendments before third reading of S94? Seeing none, please listen to the third reading of the bill by title.
S94, an act relating to the City of Barry Tax Increment Financing District.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill. The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed S94. We now have a committee resolution for second reading, JR S19. Please listen to the second reading of the bill, of the resolution, excuse me.
JRS 19, joint resolution relating to state land transactions in Jamaica State Park and Coolidge State Forest.
Now for the report of the Committee on Institutions, the senator from Windham, Senator Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joint Resolution 19 is an Institutions Committee resolution which authorizes the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation to swap specific parcels of land to improve 2 of the state parks. We have provided maps, they should be at your desks, that show the swaps for your reference. The first swap is in Jamaica State Park in the town of Jamaica. The department proposes to acquire a 5.4 acre site, which is outlined in yellow, on the West River, which would close a gap in the public trail. The owner of that property, Peter Winslow, would trade the riverside property for 24.7 acres. Those are outlined in purple. And those acres are of little conservation or recreational value, but they're adjacent to the property that Mr. Winslow owns adjacent to the park. The swap would also resolve an encroachment from Peter Winslow's property onto the state property. The department would retain an easement across the property conveyed to keep access to the park. The parcels to be swapped are both appraised at approximately $40,000, so they're of equal value. The second swap is in Coolidge State Forest, and that includes multiple parcels and is a little more complicated. The overall goal is to have a contiguous parcel and public access to the top of Old Baldy Mountain. The department proposes to first establish a conservation easement on a 102-acre isolated parcel, which is shaded green, and then swap that land for a parcel of the same size adjacent to the forest, shaded blue, owned by Jamie Ellerson. The second parcel will include a 400-foot right-of-way easement, which is a yellow hatched area, for the public recreation trail to the summit, and Mr. Ellerson will extinguish his existing right to subdivide and develop a residential lot on the parcel. So I'll stop there. The committee received testimony from Rebecca Washburn, Director, Lands Administration and Recreation, Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, Gannon Osborne, Land Conservation Program Manager, Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, and Michael Chernick, Legislative Counsel. Mr. President, your institutions committee passed this resolution on a vote of 5-0-0, and we ask the support of the body.
Now, you've heard the report from the Committee on Institutions. The question is, shall the resolution be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of JRS 19. We now have up for consideration S93. S93 was read for the first time and referred to the Committee on Finance, which is considered the same and recommends that the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S93, an act relating to the sales tax exemption for advanced wood boilers.
Now, you've heard the second reading of the bill, and for the report of the Committee on Finance, Senator from Windsor, Senator McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. President. As is the case with any venerable institution such as the Senate, we have certain traditions, including our own particular cherished superstitions, and I respect those. But I'm of Irish ancestry, and it is St. Patrick's Day, and so I am going to rely on an even older superstition, namely something called the luck of the Irish. And I am going to say out loud, this is a simple little bill. And we'll see if I'm jinxed or not. What this bill does is it extends for another 2 years an already existing sales tax exemption. We have a sales tax exemption on advanced wood heat boilers. The question of why that is a resolved question and is really not germane to this bill. This bill is, the legislature determined to create a sales tax exemption. It expires in 2023, and the bill extends it for another 2 years. We heard from Joint Fiscal, and we heard from the sponsor of the bill, the senator from Washington, Senator Perchlik, and we heard from Legislative Counsel. The vote in committee was 6-1-0, and we urge the Senate to pass the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of S93. We now have up for consideration S65. S65 was read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Finance. The Committee on Finance considered the same and recommended that when amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S65, an act relating to commercial insurance coverage of epinephrine auto-injectors.
Now you've heard the second reading of the bill. For the report from the Committee on Finance, the Senator from Washington County, Senator Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm also of Irish descent, and this is also a simple little bill. And I don't think I've jinxed myself. This bill relates to the coverage on commercially available insurance products, which are basically small and large group products of epinephrine auto-injectors. And when I first read that, I was thinking of the patches that go on. It is an EpiPen, for those of us that are more used to the familiar language. It is nothing new. EpiPens are old, like insulin, long-time medications. If you suffer from severe allergies, having access to an EpiPen is a necessity of living. For people who really need them, they are a life-saving device. They are also, like insulin, one of the pharmaceuticals, old,
came off patent, somebody bought it, and I can give you an example in my house. My husband has an EpiPen as a precaution because he has allergies, has never used it. But they expire after a couple of years and you have to go renew them. Well, when he got it at the first time, it cost $35. When he went to renew it, it cost $200. And he came pretty close to not renewing it because he'd never used it, and you know, you're doing a cost benefit. His doctor did help him find a cheaper way of purchasing it, but that's the kind of increase that happened. And for people, especially children that tend to have a lot of these very severe allergies, having access to that is absolutely necessary and also could be absolutely expensive. So what this bill does, it says that EpiPens will be covered and there won't be a copay. This gives anyone that's heard us talk about exempting things and including coverage knows that when you get into the exchange, you have an actuarial balance between what's paid by the consumer and what's paid by insurance. The insurance companies did not feel this would have any major effect. It's, in the overall scheme of things, not a huge expense. And the thing you might also want to know is this does not cover either state employees or the teachers' insurance because they are not commercially available policies, one you just buy off the shelf. They are negotiated individual policies. So this will not affect them. We heard from Ameren Abergele, our legislative counsel, Claire Buckley, representing MVP, Mike Fisher, the healthcare advocate, Nolan Langwell from the Joint Fiscal Office, Sarah Teachow from Blue Cross Blue Shield. The vote in the committee was 7-0-0, and we asked this body to concur.
Now you've heard the report from the Committee on Finance. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the report of the bill? I know it's a simple bill. I believe it is.
You may. The senator from Washington is interrogated. Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious about the effective date.
Yes. The effective date is, I believe, January 2025. That's the beginning of the calendar year. The reason we had to do that is anyone that's been here any amount of time and we try to put a new requirement on an insurance plan, the plans for the 2024 year of insurance are either being submitted as we speak or are a long way down the road. And so they won't be able to go in until next year's plan.
I thank you.
I apologize, I did misstate the question. Two bills in a row from Finance. I misread. This bill has a report from Finance, and we have to first vote on adopting the report before order and third reading. So the question is, the question was appropriate. The question is, shall the Senate adopt the report of the Committee on Finance? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it. You have adopted the report of the Committee on Finance on S65. Now the question is Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. I simply wanted to stand up and say thank you for this simple little bill. While it is a simple little bill, the impact will be immense. I am a person who has not renewed my EpiPens because of the cost and has had to use expired EpiPens, hoping that they still work. And so it is a simple little bill. The impact for those of us who need this medication is immense, and I want to thank the committee for their work and for saving the lives of Vermonters with this simple bill. Thank you.
Question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S65. We now have up for consideration S-104. S-104 was read a first time and was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, which has considered the same and recommends that when amended, the bill ought to pass. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-104, an act relating to designating August 31 as Overdose Awareness Day.
Now you've heard the second reading of the bill, and for the report of the Committee on Government Operations, the Senator from Franklin, Senator Norris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Permission to speak on the bill with what appears to be an amendment to follow.
You may.
I stand before this body for the first time reading on this honorable Senate floor on S-104. It seems that there may be some decisions, discussions from time to time on certain bills or conflicts that come through this chamber. Today, I'd like to tell you that this bill has unanimous tripartisan sponsorship of this body. Nationally, not just in Vermont, overdoses have continued to increase. Over the past 10 years, overdoses have been on the rise. In Vermont, 93% of those deaths have involved fentanyl, and only 11% have involved heroin. Across the country, more than 107,000 people in 2021 have died due to drug overdose. These are tragic numbers, to say the least. And now on to the bill. Purpose of the bill is to designate August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day and direct that the Vermont state flag be flown at half-staff on all state-owned flagpoles on this date. Moving down to section 1, the findings. 1, according to the Vermont Department of Health, from 2020 to 2021, opioid-related fatal overdoses among Vermonters rose 33%, from 158 to 210 deaths. From January through October of 2022, there were 190 opioid-related fatal deaths, of which 179 involved fentanyl. Since 2014, there have been efforts by placing 47,000 naloxone rescue kits from Vermonters as an overdose prevention measure. International Overdose Awareness Day is also observed on August 31st of each year to raise awareness of drug overdoses, to reduce the associated stigma, and to acknowledge the grief of families and friends of persons who have experienced drug overdose. Designating Overdose Awareness Day as a Vermont commemorative day recognizes the importance of each person who has experienced a drug overdose, and it reminds Vermonters that death due to a drug overdose is preventable. Overdose Awareness Day would be designated as August 31st of each year. Section 496F, Flag Protocol Overdose Awareness Day. The Department of Building and General Services shall direct in the flying of the flag protocol established in section 496D of this title that the Vermont state flag shall be flown at half-staff on all state-owned flagpoles on August 31st each year in observance of Overdose Awareness Day. This act shall become effective on July 1, 2023. Your Government Operations Committee took testimony from Michael Chernick, Legislative Counsel, Office of Legislative Counsel, Eric Philcorn, Principal Assistant, Department of Buildings and General Services, William McSalis, Director of State Safety and Security, Department of Building and General Services. The sponsor of the bill, Senator Keisha Ram Hinsdale, Troy Seckington, Access and Records Administrative, Building and General Services. This bill came out of committee on a vote of 6-0-0. Your Government Operations Committee asked the body for your support on this. Thank you, Mr. President. Moving on to the amendment, section 4. It's basically a very simple amendment. 1 VSA 378, Overdose Awareness Day, and 1 VSA 496F, Flag Protocol, Overdose Awareness Day, are repealed effective September 1, 2033, and by renumbering the remaining section to be numerically correct. This came out of committee with a 6-0-0 vote. It is the Government Operations hope that these great strides will be met on or before this date in reference to overdoses, both nationally and locally, prior to this date. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question is, shall the Senate adopt the report of the Committee on Government Operations as found on calendar page 295? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have adopted the report of the Committee on Government Operations. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S-104. That completes yours of the day.
Thank you.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending announcements, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until Tuesday, March 21st at 9:30 a.m.
Now, the Senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate now stand adjournment until Tuesday, March 21st at 9:30 a.m. pending announcements. Are there any announcements? Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education will meet at 1:30.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:30. We will promptly dispatch our last bills so that the UVM basketball game, may be played on the screen if anyone would like to join us.
Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Government Operations will meet at 12:30 today.
Are there any further announcements? I would just like to announce, as many of you already know, I will be attending the National Lieutenant Governors Association meeting in Washington next week. I see we have a full agenda on the calendar with amendments and bills with amendments to amendments and so forth. I do hope you will give as much grace and leeway to the senator from Chittenden who will be presiding as he has to navigate some of those tricky procedural motions. But I will be back Friday to help with the last hurrah push to get everything done. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate now stand adjournment until 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, March 21st. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the Senate will stand adjournment until Tuesday, March 21st at 9:30.